by Carlos Nobre. He is a climate scientist and a senior researcher with the Institute for Advanced Studies at the University of Sao Paulo. Thanks very much for being with us. So what do you put this current heat wave down to, and should we expect more of them?
Well, I have to say that was not really predicted, because we have had into 2022 the record-breaking heat wave in most of Europe. And then 2023 to have a repetition of that was not predicted, but certainly the frequency of these heat waves much higher today than decades ago. This has all to do with global warming.
So are we as humans going to have to get used to heat waves like this occurring more frequently for the foreseeable future?
Absolutely, absolutely. They are occurring much more frequent now than we expected them to take place. Let's say 30 years ago with global warming, we were predicting heat waves, droughts, severe storms, all those things to happen more frequently. But that would happen after 2050. Now they are already occurring. Therefore, even if we have a very big challenge to have success of the Paris Agreement targets, not to let the temperature exceed 1.5 degrees by mid-century, still we are going to have to get used to these climate extremes like these heat waves. They will become much more common.
So what can people do to adapt to this then, particularly right now? What can people do to minimize the effects of this extreme heat?
Well, particularly in response to the health impacts, a recent study published in Nature Medicine showed last year 60,000 people died due to the heat wave, to the record-breaking heat wave until 2022 in Europe. So therefore, people have to be much more concerned, particularly elderly people. They are very vulnerable to heat waves. So they have to really drink much more, 5 times more water. They have more and more, perhaps in Europe, we have to look for adaptation like air conditioners in houses, in buildings. So all those things, but particularly elderly people and babies, they have to be very concerned with heat waves.
And you're talking to us, as we said, from Sao Paulo in Brazil, and South America went through quite a difficult heat wave earlier in the year. How does that compare with what you're seeing in other parts of the world now, in Southern Europe and the United States and Africa?
Yes, by and large, we have had heat waves, but they were not as extreme as those in Europe. For instance, heat waves here in subtropical South America, they reached something like 38, 37, 38 degrees maximum temperature, not what we are seeing, 43, 45 in some places. For instance, a few years ago in Australia, 50 degrees, in Northern Africa, 50 degrees. So heat waves in Brazil, they were severe, but they did not lead to the death rates that heat waves in Europe are doing.
Do you think that governments, at least in the short term, are looking like they're winning this battle right now?
Well, let's hope that governments, considering what happened in 2022 in Europe, when you compare, the earthquake in Turkey, Syria last year killed almost 60,000 people. But of course, earthquakes are completely unpredictable. Heat waves are predictable. The meteorological prediction predicts very well where temperature will exceed a record-breaking, very high temperature, 38, 40, 43, up to 48, 50. So those predictions are very good. So therefore, the adaptation, increasing resilience of populations to heat wave could have done. But we hope from now on, all governments will act urgently to increase the resilience of the populations to heat waves.
Good to get your perspective on this, Carlos Nobre. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.